I would like to dedicate the shiur today to Harav Nachum Eliezer Rabinovich in memory of the late Rabbi Rabinovich, Zecher Tzadik Libracha. And this morning I'm talking to a few different cameras, and therefore forgive me from time to time traveling with my eyes. It's a different crowd. In one tablet it's the laptop, the shul, another one is the outside world, and another one is even other side of the world. Anyway, just a short dedication, as you see, to Rabbi Rabinovich. I want to share with you a little bit about Rabbi Rabinovich. He passed away day before yesterday, and our first encounters goes back to Tafshinun Dalet, about 26 years ago. The Haifa municipality in Israel used to have a book award for author, and it was at that time a lot of candidates, and the reward was very high. And I have the privilege to be selected together with Rabbi Rabinovich and Simcha Raz, both of which are the luminary scholars and Talmidei Chachamim. And I sat at that time on the stage with a lot of people, and I remember that was the first time I get to know Rabbi Rabinovich. The reward of Haifa, as you see a little bit on the screen, was the prize that Haifa municipality gave every 2 years. At that time it was Tafshinun Gimel, Tafshinun Dalet. Rabbi Rabinovich was the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the rabbinic academy in the close to Yerushalayim, place called Ma'ale Adumim. He was at his late 60s. He passed away, he was 92. And Simcha Raz, which I believe all Israeli, or most of the Israelis and the Jews worldwide are familiar with a lot of his writings. Some of them are He Was a Righteous Man, the story of Rabbi R. Levin, and many others. At that time I wrote a book on Rashi. It's called Biaouri Clomar Berashi al Shas, explanation of the philological word of using the word Clomar on Rashi. Rashi is, as you know, is the biblical and Talmudic commentators. And way before the computer era, I'm back 30 some years ago, I wrote 2 volumes from the tractate Brachot to the end of at that time tractate Bava Kama. Each and every time Rashi used the word Clomar, what he meant. And I came to about 6 different conclusions and 6 different directions, and I made the analysis of each and every one of them and the meaning. And we get a lot of money. Each winner, we are 3. And from that time onward, we get acquainted, Rabbi Rabinovich, Simcha Raz, and myself. And I was at that time in my early 30s. And may his memory be of blessing to all of us. He was a great leader, prolific author, a world-renowned rabbi. It's a matter of fact that one of his students is the former chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and many other world-leading scholars were his students. He passed away 92 years old, and may his memory be of blessing to all of us. I would like to start with a story. As you know, I always try to begin my talk with a somehow story or Iowa. It's a young man 11 years old, and he was in a great need of learning piano. The story goes that the teacher, who was a semi-retired teacher, she gets this little kid that comes to her after her musical classes and beg her to teach him piano. She said after begging her, okay, even he was kind of old in age. Usually she starts teaching when the kids are in a very early stage. And in addition, he was not in the best musical capability, to say the least. But since with his egalach, with his eyes and his great begging needs to learn piano, eventually she took him and she taught him. And each and every time he was like, she felt like he's really putting his heart there, and he wasn't so talented, but he's really trying hard. That go for approximately a year and a half. He used to attend all the classes and more. One day suddenly he stopped coming to both, to her class and to even the school. And she tried to make some inquiries, no one ever clear answer, where is the little boy? Then, just 2 weeks before graduation, she emailed all the parents telling them that will be a special ceremony of having all the boys and girls and have kind of end of the year or graduation some type of ceremony. And he gets somehow that email. And he called her up and he said that he wants to participate. And she said, you know, I didn't see you for some times. And he said, give me an assignment and I will do my very best. And she gave him one of those, short part of the concerto of Mozart. And to make long story short, they have this graduation ceremony. Just imagine a picture. You have the parents, you have the some of the teachers, you have the kids come with all the beautiful, dress and hair, comb and everything. And this boy attend like a real schlepper, meaning the shirts out, no jacket, no tie, no nothing, and was look like very different than all the other children. So eventually she just put him in a program. She changed his location, and instead of being one of the middle, she made him the last one. She figured out, as she said, that if he messed up, not look so bad because he's the last one. And the story goes that when it was his time, he went up on stage and he closed his eyes and he played above and beyond her expectations. He did so well that the entire audience stood up, clapped their heads, and non-stop clapping hands and admired this little boy, 11 years old, for his performance. Then when everyone comes down, the little boy asked to say a few words, and he went to the microphone and he said, you know, I'm not so musical, and my mom is a single mother and she is disabled. And in addition to that, she diagnosed with a cancer. And I always have a dream that my mother will be able to somehow recognize or hear me playing, even she is total deaf. And just a few months ago, she went so bad that we called for help and they moved her to a hospital. and less than a week ago she's gone, she passed away. And I felt when I have the privilege to play on the piano that now Mom definitely can hear me playing and feel very proud of me, and will kind of be connected. And I put all my days and heart and soul and time and energy to practice. So now I know for sure Mom can hear me, and we are connected to each other very much. The reason I like to, somehow I chose to start with this story, it's not only hard for us to say goodbye to a great scholar like Rabbi Rabinowitz, but also the Parashat Emor, the weekly Torah portion that we're about to read this week. Yes, it's one of the richest, or some say the richest parasha. It's a parasha that contains 63 mitzvot, and it's about 10% of the whole mitzvot in the Torah. And if you examine the parasha, almost every pasuk, every verse contains a mitzvah. But the first stage of the parasha, dealing with mitzvot involved with a ritual impurity, particularly the mitzvot involved with those who physically are no longer among the living, which are the Kohanim and their immediate families. A lot of rules when it's come to Kohanim. And the question I'd like to present to you is the obvious question: why? We are now departed from the physical location of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem for more than 2,000 years. The service of the Kohanim, we do have them serving, but they are, in a way, do not have those practice rituals that applies at the time of the temple. Furthermore, we all know that even the Kohanim, by the end of the days, it's written in numerous places that they need to go through a process of purifications before they are able to do their services. So why the Kohanim are limited? That's the beginning of the Parashat Emor, limited from contacting the deceased. Trace the situation. You have a Kohen that his best friend is no longer among the living, and he very much wants to attend the funeral service or would like to attend to his graveside in the cemetery and more. And the Torah, not rabbinic, the Torah tells him that he is prohibited. If you look at your books, in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, I think in the red Chumash it's page 717, other Chumashim is Leviticus, Parashat Emor. There are strong commandments when it's come to Kohen. Some of them saying that when it's come to the cemetery, the Kohen have a lot of limitations, such as he can go only to the 7 immediate blood relatives, but not others. And if you want to broaden the question, there are so many mitzvot applies to Kohanim in the parasha, involved with who they can marry and who is not. The questions why Kohen cannot marry a divorcee, or the high priest, Kohen Gadol, cannot marry a widow. In general, occupied ourselves with the end of lives, which that's the way the Almighty created the world. Dealing with a lot of questions when it's Kohanim. Some of them I'm sure you're familiar. Kohen cannot attend the hospital the way others. There are certain areas in the hospital that have some type of either part or full dead bodies, which, as we said, the Kohen by Torah law cannot contaminate themselves. So therefore, when he needs to visit a hospital, he is very limited. Sometimes it's a miscarriage baby, sometimes can be some type of research of the body, or question that as a rabbis we approach a lot, a Kohen went on a plane and all of a sudden there is a dead body that transferred, and can the Kohen fly with that flight while the part of the cargo contain a deceased. So overall what we are seeing is a very limited life, and as we said, we do not have at this very moment Beit HaMikdash, we don't have the Holy Temple, and yet the Kohen in all different forms asked to follow those rules. So in very short, the biblical commentators that I like to use today more than usual is Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachmanides, not Rambam. And Nachmanides was more mystical, more Kabbalistic. It's a matter of fact that Edwin Mellon Press publication published one of my books, was a philological research of the Nachmanides, of the Ramban. And the Ramban tried to analyze and explain, and again I'm just paraphrasing his language. He said that since they are the people who serving the Creator, the Lord, they are in the house of the Lord, they are in our anthropomorphic language attached to the Creator, they are connected, they are part of that, they have to be extra strict with aesthetic, they have to be very careful. I think we understand better now with all the rules of the post, if we may say, virus, coronavirus, COVID-19, because it's all kind of restrictions when it's come to social distancing. And in this, meaning the Kohen, the Ramban explained that that's what constant reminder to Kohanim, that they are higher, they are in a sense connected. Yes, they are servants, they do service for the Lord, but they have to distance themselves because they are part of the Dikom, part of a clay kodesh, God's holy vessels. So distance from a deceased, it's what is the death, what is the cemetery? It's an expression of no life, no living life. We go to a cemetery, many of us shed tears, many of us feel missing, wish to be more with people who are no longer among the living. So the one who's representing our language alive or living or connecting to everlasting Lord has to distance himself, and only the exception, if he's a regular ordinary priest, is to his 7 immediate family. He goes further to explain that when it's come to relationship with divorcee for a regular Kohen, yes, she can be a wonderful person, but he used the term derech prida b'meriva, meaning the way that she departed from her first husband was usually toward some type of quarrel or fight, or carry a lot of emotional tragedies and pain, can be totally his fault. But when it's come to a dignity of Kohen who is there for service of the Lord, it's kind of certain expectation. I may try to illustrate it by using something that I feel this crowd will feel more connected. I'm using it just as a springboard to our discussion. Think about Harry in England. I'm sure that many of you watched and read and heard the story of Harry, the rebellious little boy, or whatever you call him, mature adult that did all kind of things that, according to the Queen of England, was wrong. he hurt her feelings in so many ways, and this Harry the prince, in addition to marry someone out and even giving away his privileges, his rights, his honor of being, you know, part of the so many years established kingdom to something that, you know, the Queen of England was very hurt over the Prince Harry behavior. And in a sense, just for our cognitive, for our understanding, we can feel connected somehow to that by understanding that the Kohen, the Torah tells us that is a certain expectations from Kohen, and therefore, you know, getting such an honor also carry a price tag, in a sense that there are certain decorum, certain expectations. We are all familiar with the two sons of Aaron, sudden death. One of the reasons they said it, they were intoxicated in the temple. The certain decorum, a certain honor that were given to certain segment in society, and therefore they have to follow that. As a side note, I think that Harry for young people is something amazing, revolutionary, and more. But those of us who are familiar with history of Great Britain, of England, it was in 1936 when Edward VIII was way more than the Prince Harry, was the British, the England Caesar, right? And at that time, England controlled a big part of the world. And with all the honor and everything, he was in love with someone that was outside of the system. And I'm sure you're familiar with the story that he, in a way, was forced, or he chose to have hair by giving away his tremendous honor. So what I try to say is Harry was not the first one, and Harry was not the highest person ever in England that gave away the privileges. And that's part, again, of the Torah discussion. What happened if the Kohen, in a way, gave away? He violated the Torah laws, and there is a child involved and more. And the Torah instructed us that the privileges obviously are taken, and a lot of those privileges, the moment they are taken, unlike Queen of England that can forgive Harry, there are certain privileges that cannot return, taken, and that's it. But back to the Parsha, as we said, we read at the first part of the Parsha the mitzvah that considered the most important type of mitzvah, and that's the mitzvah of a chesed shel emet. Chesed shel emet is the mitzvah, for example, escorting the deceased to its resting place. It's the rabbi said that it's a very pure way of expressing human kindness and showing respect for the holiness of life. We know that the dead person, he or she can never thank or reward us in any way for our kindness, and the sages say that all that is done in consideration of the dead and should be sincere and unselfish. So that's part of the mitzvah of Kohen and Chesed Shel Emet. Obviously, the Parsha is not only about Kohanim. The source of the mitzvot of festivals is in the Parsha. So I would like to talk just a few moments about the Chag HaShavuot and the mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer, the counting the Omer. As you know that we count the Omer every day, and it starts on the second day of Pesach until the festival of Shavuot. And the question is, number one, why we do not have a very clear statement, the exact day of Chag Shavuot in the Torah. We, however, have the mitzvah of counting the Omer. So the 13th century rabbi from France, Rabbi Chizkiah ben Manoach, he wrote a book called Chizkuni, well-known commentary on the Torah, asked that question, and he answered that if the Torah defined Chag Shavuot on a certain day, we do not fulfill, or at least not have the enthusiasm to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer every day. As you know, we talked several times that by Ashkenazim, counting the Omer is biblical. Sephardim said that it's rabbinic, since there's no Beit HaMikdash, but all agreed that it's the yearning, like someone who's about to finish the military service, or someone is in jail. They're counting every day and they're yearning for the last moment. And the Ramban, again in Leviticus 23 verse 36, explain it's the idea that with counting the Omer, it created strong correlation between Pesach and Shavuot each and every day, almost like saying the festival of Pesach extended for 7 days, 7 weeks, for 49 days. And it's almost like Chol HaMoed, intermediary days between Pesach and Shavuot. People who left Egypt, as God tells Moses, "Be'otziacha et ha'am miMitzrayim," when I will help the people to be out of Egypt, it's in order for them to get the moment of revelation, to receive the Torah, and later on carry it to the promised land and lead that Torah, that blueprint of life, to their future generation. And therefore, the mere fact that they are out of slavery and being ready, something so spiritual, is almost like saying the difference between the freedom of matzah and moror, which is all materialistic, physical connectedness, to something that it's Shavuot is a total different category. It's spiritual fulfillment. And therefore, the Ramban explained the same way as the body and the soul, the interdynamics between the spiritual needs versus physical needs. Therefore, the living of the Egypt only for the purpose of being spiritual, receive spirituality, of revelation, receiving the Torah, that the stages that we're going through. The truth of the matter, the Ramban and many others expand on the whole idea of Sphira and Sphirot, and each and every day it's a different category of getting higher in spirituality and counting the days and counting the weeks. Next week we have a separate lecture just dealing with Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, and part of the Kabbalistic approach in Chag Shavuot, God willing, will expand on that. But the counting the Omer was done at early time. It was collecting the harvest and it was part of the offering in the temple. And nowadays we count the Omer in the evening for 7 days, 7 weeks, until we reach the Shavuot. Before I take the answer, I just want to mention another mitzvah in the Parsha. As I said, there are many mitzvot. One of the mitzvah is the lighting candles. As you know, we have 613 biblical commandments and 7 rabbinic commandments. One of them is a rabbinic derivative from this week's Parasha. We know that you see lighting candles on Friday before Shabbat. The source is in the Parasha, Leviticus chapter 24, verse 8. The Torah said, B'yom HaShabbat, B'yom HaShabbat. The Torah repeats twice, on the Shabbat, the Kohen must light the menorah. The derivative here, our sages teaches us that the reason for the redundancy of on the Shabbat is to emphasize that we must light candles every Friday night. And as we said, that's a rabbinic commandment, it's not a biblical commandment. Okay, at this time we have a moment left, so I can take questions. David, if you can open the unmute, and anyone who wants to ask me before we put together our study. Yes, is everyone unmute? Yes, I'm ready. Who is the first one? Just raise your hand. David, did you unmute everyone? Okay. Dory, you raise your hand? No, not. Okay. So, just to wrap up our study, what we said is that the Parasha is one of the richest in the Torah and the commandments. It contains 63 mitzvot. The beginning part dealing with mitzvot of Kohen in regards to whom he can marry, and ritual purity when it's come to deceased. As you know, when you go to a cemetery, the section that close to the gate, close to the entrance, is always the Kohanim sections, meaning the Kohanim buried their 7 immediate family, the loved ones there. So it gives them the access to go there, and as we said, we differentiate between 7 immediate family: father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, and others. So in general, as the Ramban explained, it's just an expression, not that he should feel like above people, but he should understand that there are certain expectations, and he's involved with a certain service, and therefore there are certain decorums that apply to him unlike others. And as we said, it's almost like nowadays when you are part of the Queens of England's family, so there are certain rules that apply to those people. Not everyone is so happy with that, but that's the way it was structured. Okay, so in conclusion, I just want to wrap up our talk. This morning we just glanced over the halachot of the Kohanim. We explained that the Kohanim involved with a 2 segment of commitments. Yes, there are the people who serve us. Yes, there are the clergy and the people who, in the temple, that have a lot of honors. We give them the first aliyah, we give them the first in zimun, we give them when you do pidyon haben, the 5 silvers. They have a lot of privileges, but also they have a lot of responsibilities. Some of them are who they can marry. If he's a high priest, he's not even allowed to marry a widow. When it's come to the immediate family, they cannot attend funeral, only the 7 immediate family, and they are, in a sense, separate from others. Now, as we said, the Ramban explained to us that even there is no temple, since they have this yearning to be in the service and understand that they have a responsibility, so therefore they need always to remember that one day, as the Jewish dream goes always, we'll have back the temple and we will unite, and therefore they should remember who they are and what they are. In that sense, the Ramban also explained the meaning of the festivals and mitzvot of festivals in the parasha, which are numerous. The question that we presented is the reasoning why the festival of Shavuot did not have a specific date, clear date in the Torah, versus the counting the Omer. And again, the Ramban explained to us that it's the yearning, the connecting, the strong feeling of need to reach the highest spirituality, which the whole purpose of being free from Egypt, from all the materialistic world, is in order to receive more connectedness to ourselves and to our spiritual world. And that can be by counting every day and yearning and waiting for this awesome moment of being connected to ourselves and to our godly mission, and therefore we can have peace in our hearts and peace in our families and peace in the world, and create peace, which we are saying by the end of the Kaddish, by the end of the Aleinu, it will be also Shalom Bimromav, the same way as there's the peace above, will be a peace below, and that's the prayer that we need so much, is the healing and peace. May God grant us peace in our lives, peace in our homes, peace in our families, peace with our anyone that we have issues in the past, and may God bring a lot of peace to all of us. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, my God, for all your kindness, now and in time to come. Thank you, my God, for all your kindness, now and in time to come. Remove from us every manner of illness, every manner of pain. Remove from us every manner of illness and every manner of pain. Lord of Kings, Lord of Kings, bless us with peace. Won't you bless us with grant us a good life and peace, and grant us a good life. Lord of Kings, Lord of Kings, bless us with peace, grant us a good life and peace. Oh, give to us the desire to serve you with honesty, and love. Give to us the desire to serve you with honesty, and love. Lord of peace, Lord of peace, bless us with peace. Won't you bless us, grant us a good life and peace. Good life and peace.